Alrighty, guys, we are back here
Fingers
with
crossed.
of course, the draft. Now we are a little bit in. The picnic is over, but we can see in the draft we have an Illidan pickup for complexity, and
Yes.
Cloud9 Maelstrom has opened up with Jaina once again. Oh, actually, Jaina was on the other side, so it's gonna be K1 Pro and Brightwing.
That's true. They didn't get the denial. Actually, I really like the Brightwing. The times that I've either been playing Illidan or had someone on my team playing Illidan, any of the Hero League games I'm playing, if there's a Brightwing, there happens to be a Brightwing on the other team, oh god, that polymorph is so annoying. And she still has a lot of sustained healing. No, nothing big on the burst side of things, but that polymorph can really do a lot to shut down Illidan. So it doesn't surprise me to see some teams messing around with the impactfulness of polymorph. Also, Criterize plus Jaina can also burst a lot of heroes down. I like that the game kind of moved away from the burst style a little bit, but now it's sort of coming back, but it requires a little bit more coordination with the team, right? It's not like one hero just eliminates this person.
Right.
It's like you need the combination of 2 or 3 heroes coordinating, locking someone out of position, and killing them that way.
It's
which
super
is fun to
exciting, by the
watch.
way. It
It's
really
really
is.
cool.
And that's we've seen like those pick compositions we talked about in that last series, and I would actually be shocked if we didn't see Tyrande in this game. Now she works in both of these compositions. Neither team has shown their hand in terms of that tank, and they can go either way. Specifically though, Cloud9 has that Jaina, so it's something complexity has to be wary of. Do we let them have Stitches? Do we let them have Tyrande?
Oh gosh. That's okay. Tyrande is decent in Complexity's lineup. It's more of a steal than anything else. They cannot let Cloud9 Maelstrom get Tyrande and Stitches. That would have been like GG at the draft screen. If they had gotten
I mean, you hook into Poly, hook into Lunar Flare,
Yeah.
hook into Blizzard, you name it. All of it is a bad.
It's a bad time.
Yeah.
For whoever gets hooked, that would be a problem. I wouldn't. They have the option to pick Stitches. If both of those picks were available, guarantee that they're going to just go straight for the Tyrande Stitches. Not the case. They can still grab Stitches, and I think that this game, compared to what they had before, just between Brightwing and Jaina, it's a lot better capability to capitalize on those who get hooked over walls, etc. So they can still go Stitches. I don't think it's a mandatory thing or something that would be crazy for them to give up. They can still either choose to lock out their warrior or maybe deny a warrior for the complexity side of things, like what just happened on their side where they blocked out Tyrande.
It's curious because they very well could still just scoop up something like Diablo and still make a really nice composition out of it. And it's not to say that Tyrande is the only hero that can work for that style. Uther is still on the table. And if they do have Uther Brightwing, that is a very formidable comp. And, Thrall has actually seen buffs. And I hate to say that this is the composition where we might see Thrall, but the fact that they could, in theory, have that cleanse for Thrall and let him really be in your face. I mean, he's got more speed with the Wind Fury. He's got a little bit more self-sustainability. I think he's in a decent place, but how much have the teams practiced with him? I think it's one of the bigger questions.
Yeah, because he's sort of been out of the meta for such a long time.
He has.
And having just sort of been thrown back in, or at least we can try to predict that. We may not see any play for some time.
Right, it's just one of those things that might be on the table.
Heck, Arthas was grabbed. I mean, it's
True.
like he hasn't been in the meta for a while either, and he gets thrown into that game to great success. So it's obviously on the table for possibilities. And I like the complexity ended up using Arthas because that's such a wild thing to see. And it shows that these teams have really prepared for the games that are going to be happening this weekend, and they're realizing the strength that these niche picks have. Arthas, or where 2Arc likes to sometimes run Tyrael, and they know that the other teams don't play it, so they can leave that for their last pick. Like, I want to see more stuff like that, because while these heroes might not be that strong, they have strength in the the low percentage that they're played by the other team, so that they can win on the draft screen more. Cool stuff.
Now look at that. Maelstrom is down to just 4 seconds of that bonus pool. They did end up going for Muradin, so that's going to be their tank. Muradin is very just kind of in your face. He's a stun bot. We've seen King Caffeine play him to great success in the past. So I'm excited to see what he can pull off for them. Muradin was completely unchanged in this patch.
He works well to counter against Illidan and Tassadar. He has, I would be shocked if we did not see the Thunderclap upgrades at levels 1 and 4.
Reverberation, I
I
believe.
think it is Reverberation that lowers the attack speed of any heroes that are hit within that radius. And it's a sizable radius. Muradin has enough of an HP pool to get into that point to even try to disrupt the Archon, or if it's just Illidan that dives into the team. Also, you know, imposing presence. Like, there's just a lot of things that Muradin has that seem to work out particularly well against Illidan in this draft. So I like it. I think it makes a lot of sense. Like I was saying, they didn't have to go Stitches. It's something that could work. Like, Muradin stuns plus all of these combos, while they're not as easy to hit and you can't grab people from as far away, it can still work. So, still liking both of these lineups. Now, Stitches, I'm curious of... Okay, all right, they have Tyrande.
They have Tyrande.
Do they have the damage output to capitalize, or is it just going to be a displacement thing? We'll have to see who their final grab is.
The curious thing is they could go for a damage, or they could run with Tyrande, Tassadar as the support.
Yeah,
We've seen this in the past, but Tyrande has received a bit of a buff in terms of healing.
That's what I was sort of alluding to that a little bit in the last game. Like, she's almost at that point where you can run her as a solo healer, and with the extra shielding and the healing ward for both of these heroes, it could be a thing now.
Yeah.
And we have Falstad, who can capitalize on hooks with the Heroine's Blast. Not as strongly as, you know, perhaps Jaina, but obviously that's not available to them in this draft. I'm okay with this. I think it's cool.
And Falstad, he was starting to pick up popularity, and then he saw a little bit of love in the patch too. So to see Falstad slowly making his way back in the meta, and then get just, you know, a little bit more mobility with his E, getting a slight buff, and then just a little bit more base damage. Nice to see him getting some play. And Cloud9, they are down to their final pick. They have almost no time left. They've only got 4 seconds of that bonus pool. They have to decide very quickly if they want more heals, and they go for the Lost Vikings.
Okay. Probably the map that we first saw the Lost Vikings being used on.
Yeah,
was Blackheart's Bay.
Tempo Storm, I believe.
Yes, I think you're right with that. And they, like we were talking a little bit before, we were alluding to the fact that the bottom lane is so much further away. Like, sometimes we just we see that they're making use of splitting the Vikings up, and they can throw one to the bottom lane, and, you know, leave the two up to the top. There's a lot of, I guess, options that you can have moving forward with the Vikings.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see them played. I like it.
Well, we've got a cool stat coming in from our admin, Mr. Sia Steve. He ran a poll here in the Twitch chat, and compLexity is favored to win this series 75-25. 3/4 of you are rooting for compLexity. You think they're going to advance forward.
They have they've really shown their capability in these past couple sets of tournaments. Of course, winning the group stage with a 7-0 record. They took the previous Titan Arena over this team, so they just played last week, and I think the score was 3-1. So it was a convincing win.
That was the grand finals, 3-1 victory, like you said, in favor of compLexity.
Right.
So looking at those stats, that's actually something that's kind of hard to ignore, and it's looking favorable for them. But Maelstrom, this is one of their maps. If I'm not mistaken, they have I think they have, in ESL Major League, if I'm not mistaken, they have not lost yet on Blackhearts.
They're 4-0.
4-0 on Blackhearts Bay.
4-0.
So that's something to consider. This is
cool.
Likely their map of choice. They've got Vikings. We've seen them use Vikings to great success.
That's another thing that I'm also really excited. As this game progresses and it starts to mature a little bit more, we're going to see this type of thing where it's becoming very apparent that X Team is really got the strategy locked down, even over a very wide variety of hero compositions on this particular map.
They just,
map,
it's just timings and executions.
Yeah.
And timing attacks is like, you know, if you guys followed StarCraft 2, timing attacks was such a big thing.
Yeah.
And certain players would be known for X timing attacks. That is definitely going to be a thing on specific maps for teams here in Heroes. And loading into game number 2 on the blue side, we do have Cloud9 Maelstrom, K1 Pro rocking that Jaina Dunk Train on Brightwing, King Caffeine. He's got Muradin. It's going to be Biceps on Vala, and rounding it out is going to be iDream on the Lost Vikings.
And for compLexity, on the red side, we have McIntyre on Illidan, Kionda on Tyrande, Blink's going to be playing Tassadar, Trummel on Falstad, and Arrow is going to be playing Stitches. Probably a little bit weird for Blinks to not be playing like a full support, right?
Yeah, that's actually a good
Usually,
point.
there's almost like of all the meta changes that we've seen over the past 6-9 months or so, there's always been a support, right? And if this starts becoming a thing, that's kind of interesting. I think that's neat.
Well, getting that damage on the board, that Sentinel connects very early on. K1 Pro getting dismounted, just a minor annoyance, and we can see McIntyre in a very aggressive position. He wants first blood with Eric getting hooked out like that. The Lunar Flare will make sure the kill is picked up. Now, it's not a large amount of experience provided for each Viking kill, but it's aggression, and it's just kind of like saying, hey, look, we're here to fight.
Bride. Bribed for Brightwing, I was just looking through some of the talents. There is Reverberation, of course, that reduction in attack speed. Still multi-shot build for Vala. We'll talk in a little bit about some of the changes that she saw in this previous patch. Also bribed for False Step. What is this? Is this December? This is something we've seen like 3-4 months ago.
Bribe has definitely fallen off a bit, but when you consider the core mechanic is collecting coins, and by bribing mercenary camps you get coins,
Absolutely.
I guess it does make a lot of sense. But with this pressure here provided by Cloud9, they're going to be able to scoop up those 5 coins from bottom, and it looks like they were only able to get the 1 coin on top. Keyboard Pro very low, but Poly will be used nicely to zone long enough to get him to safety.
Yeah, coin count is 6-4 in favor of complexity at the moment. So no team is going to be able to turn in just yet. And we were talking a little bit about the power of Bribe in this map. Giants can be particularly strong on the bottom lane, in addition to, of course, getting coins like you were mentioning. The lane is so much further away that if you just apply a bit of pressure, split pushing, it can have a nice impact in terms of getting yourself an experience lead early.
And speaking about those coins, well, it looks like Urho is going to try to turn in his 4, and now we do see that, of course, Muradin did get his 4 turned in. McIntyre just getting chased back a little bit as Caffeine's just roaming around, trying to keep the Vikings nice and safe, as the Vikings are, in fact, split up, with iDream turning in the 1 coin.
And actually, a bit of a 3-man rotation in the bottom lane. King Caffeine will probably, yes, he'll have to use, and the hook actually was almost nicely timed. You have to sort of guess when they're going to use that Dwarf Toss, and if he had waited any longer to try to make sure he cleared the wall, he could have gotten blown up. So the timing was good. Actually, Urho almost landed sickest hook NA 2015, but
not
cool.
today.
Not today.
Not today.
Try again.
Maybe tomorrow. Well, level 4 being achieved for both teams. Spin for win. Vala sticking to that multi-shot style. Really, Vala, in terms of her changes, she lost her invulnerability flames on the vault, and she lost battle momentum. So it's a minor nerf for King Caffeine. Is going to get the peel here. The patient coming in from Dunk Train, and 1 Viking will fall. But Dunk Train, the stun's going down. The Hunter's Mark, Illidan in the front, and the body blocks will be enough to pick up that kill. Wow, complexity is actually just pushing forward with the flips, and another Viking falling. This is going to open up the doors. Look at those bribe stacks going in, just 1 stack used to take out one of their bruisers here in the bottom lane, and they are sitting at almost a nice half level. That's going to turn into a level very quickly.
This is what complexity is really known for doing, for drafting even heroes that aren't necessarily known for super early aggression, like Trummel on Falstad here, but he had the premonition to fly down to really capitalize on that kill. And yeah, of course, that Lunar Flare just missing that, almost picked himself another kill onto King Caffeine. But like I was saying, this early aggression, this is what complexity is known for really capitalizing on and catching those really early level leads.
And, I mean, just look at that. They know they have every right to push on in. They just put that aggression on that we mentioned, and they took out a few towers, and that structure damage, you're just going to loop back, pick up coins, and I believe they have enough to turn in. No, just sitting on the 5 right now, so they need to collect 1 more coin before they can get a full-on siege. But on the other half of the map, there are enough coins for Cloud9, and they are going to get the first turn in of the game.
Very nice. A bit more of an aggressive style Jaina, so the Envenom was picked up at level 4. King Caffeine actually sniffing out there, going for the Giants on their own side, and Kionda finds himself very low, will end up falling. McIntyre below 30% HP, and has Cloud9 forced a position that is going to be favorable for them to steal these Giants. Lynx now, a little bit too far forward. The E, the Dimensional Shift, and the Shield are not going to quite be enough to get away. Cloud9 Maelstrom all of a sudden taking this momentum swing back.
Yeah, I mean, I just really like the power of Vikings because they don't have a mount, but they have Go-Go-Go, which is the sprint. And if you can really just get in front of a target and body block them like we saw, that Tassadar is normally a hero that's near impossible to kill. They just provided that utility to get in their face and help them pick up the kill. But now we do still have the coins available on the side of complexity, and they might be trying to turn in. McIntyre, he's got 5, 2 on Trummel. They're very close to the turn in, but they want to make sure they find the location on the enemy team first.
So battle momentum was taken away from Vala in this previous patch. Now we have repeating arrow, where the cooldown and hungering arrows reset when Vault is used. So I guess trading a little bit of utility in the sense of bringing down the cooldown for your heroics and other abilities as well. We now have a bit more damage output due to that patch change. The other thing that she lost, I should mention, is that the Vault no longer has the invincibility on it, so she's a little bit got to be more careful with the positioning. Especially against Stitch's hook, that was, commonly, okay, you see the hook and you have time to vault and react that way. But if the path of it is good, you'll still grab her.
Now, the invulnerability is also true for Illidan's dash forward, so that's something that we have to consider. That's one for each team that has seen that change. And McIntyre, sitting on 12 coins, no longer can just dodge any stun coming his way.
Right, okay. looking at Muradin's build, Reverberation and Thunderburn, which is the extra pulse of the Thunderclap going down. So that's all just to kind of keep Illidan and the Archon in check when we inevitably see that heroic grabbed at level 10. And Cloud9 Maelstrom is actually applying a bit of counter pressure with these Giants on the bottom lane.
Yeah, and note that, I mean, everyone's just soaking well. Now, we talked about those 12 coins in Illidan. He's going to be able to turn in 6 of them, getting the first siege of the game on the side of compLexity. But yeah, the damage has been done here in the bottom, but compLexity has done just about as much in the top line with their bruisers. Okay,
Emerald Wind grabbed for Brightwing, Avatar, Water Elemental, Longboat Raid, and Strafe. Things that we would expect to see, but Emerald Wind, maybe, perhaps not so much.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense in some of these team fights, especially when you have that Illidan in your face.
Yes.
It'll be a lot of fun to see that pan out. And we do have Brightwing as the solo support, so we'll see how that actually pans out. The hook goes in on King Caffeine. That Hunter's Mark makes it so very scary. And again, we don't have Blink Heal to provide those, just the immediate support for Muradin, but his passive will kick in very quickly.
That was quite close. He did not have Dwarf Toss off cooldown, so he just used it. So they were quite close to being able to eliminate Muradin. Yeah, and as you mentioned, the survivability is back, and he's ready to get into these fights because of his passive ability to regen that HP. iDream getting his ult off a little bit low. Not going to pan out.
Yeah, well, we see the bruisers are being collected right now, and it looks like, compLexity, they're just sticking together. They know they can put on some pressure. They probably suspect those bruisers are coming, and they just want to blow them up once they pass through the gates here on the side of Cloud9.
Game is very even at this point between both teams. I can't say that one side really has the advantage over the other, even in the way that they've been engaging each other. They're both finding opportunities to maximize the effectiveness for their team and how they should be playing, either through securing nice hooks to blow up those targets or just solid positioning for King Caffeine with the Muradin and catching, compLexity off guard, I guess I should say, when they took that fight over by the Giants. It's just something that they weren't expecting to be contested on. So good play from both teams so far.
Yeah. Okay, so the Falstad just utilizing his mobility and utilizing that bribe, picking up Giants, picking up coins. He's sitting on 8 coins right now. They are well aware of his position, but look, he just uses the E to get across that wall to safety, and he's out of harm's reach at this point in time. Let's just talk about a few of these talents, though. There is one Mule in this game, and Mule can actually just flat out change maps like this. Tassadar picked it up for the side of compLexity, and
it's a big sacrifice.
Yeah, it is.
He usually get the critical strike for his static charge. Any auto attacks that are thrown down on a target that's sitting in the Psystorm gets an extra damage buff, and when you stack that up with Archon, the damage output is very significant. So having to give that up for Mule in this case it's significant, and they have to really make sure that they get the most out of it. This is a map that's very good for it in the sense that siege damage from the cannons can be hit very far away from where the enemy team is applying the pressure. And you might get a lot of use out of that Mule.
Well, it looks like compLexity is going to be able to get the second turn in for their side in this game, but we do see the Mercs being picked up by Cloud9. Now just getting an update on the coin count. 12 were just turned in, but looking at the coins, there's only 6 on the side of Cloud9, and there is still 8 sitting here for compLexity. So they have actually been controlling the jungle relatively well, even though both teams do have that bribe. They've just been capitalizing on those pirate camps a little bit better.
compLexity opting to rotate to the bottom side of the map. They had just thrown the Owl, the Sentinel, up from Tyrande to check to see if Cloud9 Maelstrom was taking the boss. They didn't see anything, so they're going to continue to pressure bottom. Now they are taking the boss, so we're going to see a bit of a trade in pressure for both teams. Cloud9 Maelstrom will take this Giant and very likely push forward. Nope, they're going to back up as compLexity is a bit further forward in that pressure, if you get what I'm saying.
Yes, they certainly are. They're knocking on that door, moving on in, and yes, with the boss being there, the Emerald Wind will just push them back for safety, and this will be a full-on disengage out of compLexity. They are just going to leave. Hinterland's Blast going out, not really doing a whole lot. I think
that was odd.
I think he just hasn't used it all game, and he was just
the trigger finger is so itchy.
Well, the Sentinel just kind of goes out, just providing vision, giving vision on many members of the side of Cloud9, and they are going to attempt to turn in those 5 coins that will give him a siege.
As much as we laugh about that Hinterland's Blast being thrown down, that could be a very large factor as to why they weren't able to contest those Giants. That's a big amount of DPS that is not going to be available, especially considering the gathering power. yes, of course they need to deal with this golem up top. If they'd seen an opportunity of positioning with them turning in there, they might have been able to fight, but without the Hinterland's Blast, definitely not.
Yeah, and it's just typically you see Hinterland's Blast used to try to finish off a target when the fight had not even begun yet. It's just a bit weird to see it there. But the Golem is going to march and make his way. A single slap applied to these back walls, but that siege is moving on into the middle lane, and the wall will be the only thing to fall.
Structure-wise, both of these teams are finding themselves evenly matched, down to nothing but the keeps. But map control-wise, things appear to be going very nicely for K1 Pro, doing a nice job soaking up that Ranger. I saw that the Pierce was not grabbed at level 4 for Tyrande, opting instead to go for the Protective Shield.
Is that going to be a keep? It's going to be very close. I don't think we'll actually destroy the keep.
No, not quite. I don't think.
Well, that's you know, just very nice to be able to get back-to-back sieges like that. It's actually very uncommon to just be able to turn in again at this point in the game.
Yeah.
So that's a big win for Cloud9, and that will give them the experience lead. So they go from being a little bit behind to suffering a lot of aggression to getting a nice boss and then 2 turn-ins and giving them, well, the edge on that level 16.
It's interesting that you mentioned that keep. Oh, a little bit of aggression being thrown down from complexity. Catching iDream, his Eric quite low,
but he's got the additional movement speed. That's going to be just enough for him to back on out. The Sentinel looking for a target, but iDream decides to rally him to the right. That keep did need about 1 or 2 more cannon shots to eliminate it.
Still, 16 has been acquired for Cloud9 Maelstrom. This may give them the go-ahead, the green light to start getting aggressive in these fights. King Caffeine is moving to a bit more of an aggressive spot. They are definitely looking to fight here during the small timing attack that Cloud9 Maelstrom has before complexity hits level 16, and they decided the positioning wasn't quite there, weren't pleased with what they saw, decided to be a bit patient.
I mean, that's exactly it though. We talk about the advantage for 16. There's no necessary reason why they have to fight. They have no immediate reason to take that fight, so they just disengage. Yeah. They don't want to fight at a disadvantage in terms of talents. I mean, you consider things like Norse Force, Numbing Blast, and Critterize. I mean, all 3 of those are massive, but just every single hero getting that power advantage, you don't want to fight at that.
Absolutely smart for complexity to realize the situation and to back up through that top lane. Still, this continues to give Cloud9 Maelstrom map control. They don't quite have enough coins to turn in. Still, they're well on their way towards their 3rd turn-in, 4th turn-in.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can be seen in the structure damage.
We talked about Maelstrom's ability to just kind of handle this map and just their control of it. I mean, in the ESL major leagues, they are 4-0.
Yeah.
If we're correct with our numbers and our calculations.
And it is showing here in their strategy. They just are sort of have this grip on the map right now, and you just get you put yourself in complexity's shoes right now. It just feels as though they're struggling to find windows to try and get back that map control.
Yeah, the Sentinel is continuously revealing information, but they're just not able to capitalize. Hook just barely reaching our pajama-wearing Vikings, and then those Bruisers providing a bit of experience, but also just that, you know, the distraction in the bottom lane. And I like this rotator on. The Sentinel goes out. It did not see any of them.
Right. So they're realizing that they have a small window position. Perhaps they're just keeping themselves around because they know the timing for these chests roughly within about plus or minus 15 seconds. And this is the time where complexity looks as though they're getting very aggressive. And to throw in the hook, the fishing hook was not able to quite clip. K1 Pro would have been an excellent target for it. And Arrow, realizing with the rest of his team for complexity, this is not the time to fight. Without that hook, we don't really have the initiative advantage that we would be looking for.
Now, this is a situation where they're a bit out of position. Brightwing can face shift up if she needs to. She might even want to start doing that sooner than later. Lost Vikings also a bit out of position, but it looks like complexity is just really, they don't want to get collapsed on. That's what they're worried about, and it's going to be a few coins turned in, all 10 coins collected in favor of Cloud9, and they, like you said, they just seem to have such a massive grip on this map right now.
Yeah, if the coin count advantage that complexity has right now, it's staggering. They have a lot. Almost enough for 2 turn-ins, but they just can't seem to find the breathing room to get time at the turn-in spot long enough to try and capitalize on this advantage. And if they lose the team fight, if they get wiped at this point, that's all but GG.
Yeah, and those Vikings are already pretty low now. They do have Longboat Raid to help. Norse Force is popped and a lot of damage going off. We see the poly on McIntyre. There is a big amount of Morphosis in, and I think this is when Vikings need to pop that Longboat. There is the Emerald Wood going off. Dunk needs to run on the way. McIntyre so low, they do manage to pick up the kill. That is a huge deal. King Caffeine gets pulled in. 10 coins dropped off, being collected, but the longboat rate is blowing up everything in its path. The damage coming out from the Vala. Urho, the slow from Cone of Cold. Is it enough to secure a kill? Blizzard will pick up Kionda. There goes Stitches, and there's so many coins on the ground.
That's a lot of coins. and like I was saying, yes, they still have 15 between Trumbull and Blinks. And the Mule, of course, is doing some work. But, man, the Stranglehold continues. They take a very favorable fight. I think Cloud9 does. They pick up a lot more coins, and they're just going to continue to turn it in PvP, or PvE, sorry. Just keep picking up those coins, and it's just so hard to break back into this map control. We're going to need to start seeing the effectiveness of the hooks a little bit more. They got to play into that. They have the capability to blow up these targets, but it becomes difficult, especially with the Vikings. Like it's so much harder to find that priority target to catch that Jaina. And Vala perhaps, but even she has a little bit more mobility to escape from the follow-up for the hooks.
But on the other half of things, these mercenaries in both the bottom and top lane have done a lot of work. Those bruisers pushed in, they took out this wall. The bottom lane, that keep is down half health, and the Mule actually healed that middle keep up significantly. The Tassadar shields, they soaked up half of the ammunition on this keep that had been nearly dead. So all things considered, they did a good amount of damage control, and they're trying to turn the coins, but they realize they need to back up. Cloud9 guns in a nice big, oh my goodness.
That might have actually been slightly mistimed. Even still, it's just Eric Wall. The kill would have been nice to grab that pickup. It's still not the target that they're looking for.
It's 8 coins though. It's 8 coins.
That's a good
point.
point. That's a good point. In all fairness, that is something that should be mentioned. I mean, you can see the positioning from K1 Pro. He's very really safe until he knows that hook is off cooldown, and he does have it. He's going to grab the Olaf of iDream, but the positioning is still, they're shoving Cloud9 back. Cloud9 does not want to get too aggressive until they hit level 20, which they're very close to. And this might actually be the trigger that gets them to move forward. I'm not so sure that they can actually take a leg up on this fight. Yeah, they got the turn in.
Yeah, that's all they wanted. They wanted that turn in. Now, does that get them to keep? I'm not too sure. We'll find out in a bit. McIntyre's taking a lot of damage. The poly not going to be quite enough, and there goes that Putrid Bile. There is a Hunter's Mark on King Caffeine, but the Lunar Flare will not connect. Dwarf being used to just get out of that situation, and right now, compLexity, they have Cloud9 split up.
Wow, I'm surprised at the hesitation to either go to one side, the top or the bottom, to try to follow up to at least get 1 or 2 kills, opting to take the safe play. There is one positive thing that we can look at for the compLexity side, is that since they have done so much structural damage through mercenaries and through just hard pushing, it takes less coins at this point in the game for them to move forward to get those keep kills. So from here on out, the coins that they do have and that they have turned in are going to get more value, if you understand what I'm saying.
Well, Falstead did get blown up somewhere, somehow, but we do have another siege going in. This will destroy the top fort. No Mule, no Tassadar shields, nothing can save it at this point in time, and that's why we see this counter aggression in the bottom. They want to remove all 3 forts from the game. Cloud9 just making that decisive call, and this bottom keep is just going to get blown up so very quickly.
Yeah, and you can see that by the time we even finish that sentence, it's already gone. They have postured themselves in a very nice place to move forward. They need just one more turn-in. A turn-in will bring the keep down to, the core down to like 20% HP, which case they can pretty much throw themselves onto it with all disregard for their HP bars, etc. So they're just going to continue. I think Cloud9 will keep rotating around the map, looking to avoid as many engagements as possible now that, of course, compLexity is level 20. We do see the Call of the Wild Hammer, extra range and damage output. Hardened Shield for Stitches. Twilight Archon, which is, again, additional range and damage output. Storm Shield and Bolt of the Storm for Illidan.
Yeah. No arcane power in this game on Jaina. She's just opting for that safe play, picking up the bolt. Knowing the enemy team has a hook, and there goes the hook onto Dunktrain. But he will be using Sprint to get out of that situation. Brightwing lost Rewind, but Sprint is such a phenomenal option, especially when you pair that with something like Emerald Wind.
Gosh, so hard to lock down any of these targets, both of ones that you think might be a good target to hook. They both have Sprint, so unless your follow-up is really crisp, and actually the Baylog ends up falling from iDream. Trummel once again finding himself in a sticky situation. It looks as though the Water Elemental is going to follow up and get the kill. They're just immediately aggressing. They need to try to salvage the best they can out of the situation. If they lose a really bad team fight, this could be...
The free is the talent from Jaina going to be able to help them get out of that situation, just barely surviving and eliminating that target. Kionda is very low. That longboat raid from behind picking up the kill, and I think Maelstrom has done it. There are so many coins on their team right now. They have gotten an ace onto their opponent, and that is going to be a victory. The core is exposed. It's already being sieged up by these
Yes.
giants and catapults, and the turn-in is not even
24
necessary.
coins are now sitting in the vault of Cloud9 Maelstrom. I understand why compLexity was getting so aggressive in that team fight. They had just lost Trumbull, and they said, okay, we know the positioning for the couple members of Cloud9 Maelstrom is not quite where they want to be. If we're going to take a fight, we need to do it now. And they jumped on the opportunity. It didn't quite pan out. They were really close. And like you mentioned, the freeze for Jaina that was just doing a ton of work in that last fight. Still, it was close, but Cloud9 Maelstrom remains undefeated in ESL group stage and playoffs now on this map. I think that puts them at 5-0, which is an impressive score for any map.
I mean, they started out behind. That really looked all about compLexity in the early game.
Yeah, for like the first 7 levels or so, but then they really picked up their stride, especially with the team fighting. And just the rotations that they have on this map and positioning in general for all their heroes. Very few times where they even caught out of position. They managed to dodge all the hooks. They know where all the hook spots are, where they can likely get grabbed from. The positioning for Jaina was almost always on point, behind the Vikings, behind Muradin. And I don't think she ever got hooked in that game. And she was the best target for it. We saw one hook being thrown to the Brightwing, but you still have Emerald Wind, you have Sprint. So they did a nice job tailoring the positioning for their team, the rest of their composition to sort of deal with hooks, and it was very rare that it was even impactful enough to turn team fights for them.
Right. I mean, like you said, the Vikings getting hooked 9 times out of 10 doesn't really mean much. If they have coins, that's unfortunate, but beyond that, just really well played by Cloud9, taking the series 1-1 right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, this is the dream scenario. We're going to Game 3. It's a best-of-5 series, but these teams are just going back and forth.
2 juggernaut teams, right? They're just I want to see Game 5 for every series this week. I'm serious. Like, it's going to take days to go through it all, but it's going to be great because they're all super good matches.
It's true.
Really exciting stuff.
Well, before we get to Game 3, let's just get you guys up to speed with exactly what's happening with the bracket. Now, this is what the bracket looks like. We do have compLexity versus Cloud9 happening right now. That's the first winner semis, and the second winner semis that's going to be happening immediately after this best-of-5 series concludes.
And that's going to be between Tempo Storm and 2Arc Iliad. Now, 2Arc took a 2-0 victory over Tempo Storm in the group stage of this group stage going into this playoff. So they're very capable of taking matches here. So Tempo Storm, although they have had a very dominant run in the past 4 or 5 months for heroes, it's very possible for 2Arc to take an advantage going forward too.
It's potentially like the bigger story here in terms of that salty run back, because Tempo Storm has to be. Tempo Storm almost got that took them from their first place position, and that was their first loss of the series. And of course, compLexity did defeat Tempo Storm on top of that, but they want that revenge.
That's a good point. So, quick correction for the prize pool. I think I mentioned 2,500 for first, not quite 2,000. Still very, very sizable chunk of change for these teams. And second place is going to be 1,000. Third is 750. And of course, because we have a losers bracket, we can differentiate between third and fourth for placings for prize payouts, and that's going to be 450. So, all these teams have worked super hard to get into the playoff brackets. They're all getting paid regardless.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Pretty big difference between 450 and 2,000. So they really got to step their game up, if they want to get their hands on that sweet, sweet prize pool.
Well, on that note, guys, we're just going to run to a quick commercial break, prepare for game number 3. So stay with us. We'll be back in just a few. Alrighty, guys, welcome back here to the ESL Major League Americas. I am joined by the Kubi,
And I'm joined by Solid Jake.
and
Ooh.
what a wonderful day it is. We're going into Game 3 between Cloud9
Scores 1-1.
and
Both
compLexity. That's the other team.
Oh, yeah. Just decided to cut you off there. I was like, no, score. 1-1. Real exciting.
And, well, we're just excited for this next map because it is Sky Temple, and this is one of the more high-energy, aggressive maps in the game. It is the second newest map in the game. Of course, Tomb of the Spider Queen banned out for this event because it is only a few days old.
That's right. That's right. So we're going to see Sky Temple. Some heroes have been messed around with in the past. Maybe some Gazlo, not to so much success.
Yep.
But there is a little bit of an element in terms of knowing where the team fights are probably going to happen, because when those temples pop up, it's a highly contended point that is to your benefit to really grab. Well, let's quickly get into these giraffes and this ban in particular. Once again, ETC and Rhaegar banned for both teams. I think maybe this will be a trend moving forward, but very few changes to these heroes. Actually, buffs for ETC, a very, very slight nerf to Rhaegar, but they're still super strong. They were super strong in the previous patch to the point where they were already banned quite often. Now, to see them banned, it might become a very common mainstay. We'll see. Jaina.
Also could be a common mainstay. Jaina being pick number one. Because she has been seeing nothing but buffs. And, of course, she gained a nice new level 20 talent called Arcane Intellect that gives her, or Arcane Power, excuse me, that's basically a new generic talent that will be kind of the caster version of something like Nexus Fury, or Fury of the Nexus.
So she gets Icy Veins and that? Gosh.
It's scary.
Yeah.
but it's also like you need a bit of a setup to get that to happen. To blow those cooldowns and then start unloading, you kind of need a very specific scenario.
Hey man,
so I think it's gonna be pretty common to see Bolt, which we saw in that last game, still remain a very popular.
But teams are getting so good at coordinating those types of setups.
That's
so
true.
We're no surprise at all to see Jaina being so highly sought after, especially for Cloud9 Maelstrom. Of course, they have K1 Pro, the originator of the Jaina play. So to see that first pick, they'll find a composition for her to work in. They'll say, "You give us Jaina, we'll make it work."
Yeah. Well, compLexity, they're starting out with that Tassadar. He's always been a very common pick. It's actually interesting to see how quickly teams have just kind of swapped from that Vala, because a week ago it would have always been Vala as that first pick, and now she has lost a lot of momentum. She has lost those invulnerability frames.
Yeah,
but she's still going to see a lot of play.
That's right. And Brightwing being picked up more. No changes to Brightwing over this past patch, I don't think, right?
No, unless there's undocumented changes that we don't know about, which is always a possibility. But yeah, I mean, Brightwing has that global presence, especially in Sky Temple, that can be just utilized to sit on those temples as long as possible across the map, and once you're needed, phase shift to your allies and assist with those team fights.
ETC also very good for that, of course. No surprise. I keep coming up with some good reasons why ETC's banned on every map, and hey, you know what? That's probably why he's a pretty good hero.
Yeah, he's definitely got his place.
Yeah.
But that Falstad also saw a bit of love in this patch, and if Cloud9 is looking to try to have that global presence, have that mobility, he's an option.
That's right. So, up until this point, neither team has really found success with the Stitches compositions.
It's true.
And Stitches did receive quite a few changes, so unless the hook play is really, really on point, and nothing against either team, I'd say if anything, it's more that the teams are very good at playing around hook, but we haven't seen any huge hooks that have really turned the momentum of the games.
I mean, specifically those pick compositions with hooks have been so popular the last couple months. So every team, like you said, they're so seasoned with that style that they just, in Lost Vikings, I mean, they just can outright deny it because there's just so many obnoxious little bearded bodies in the way of that darn hook.
It's true. It's true. And actually, they could have gone for the Tyrande Stitches grab right here with Jaina. So, even Maelstrom is coming to this realization. They're saying, okay, it didn't really work all that well for us game one. We haven't really had any huge competitive games yet. Of course, these guys have been practicing throughout the course of the week, but I'd be willing to bet they haven't been playing against each other. So these are the best teams in NA. They're probably playing against other teams that aren't in this tournament. Although I guess you could say that Cloud9 Maelstrom might have the advantage there because they could play against their sister team, Vortex, who are also quite strong. But still, we haven't seen the tournament meta develop yet. And it may be that Stitches just doesn't have the tank of the survivability and the damage output to really justify grabbing him anymore.
Yeah, I think I'd be surprised if we didn't see something like Diablo sitting in. Of course, we already saw Muradin and Arthas in the series, and both of them saw some pretty good success.
Yep.
So we'll see what ends up happening in this game. Now, compLexity, they've got all the sustainability in the world, and we talk about sustainability as being a big factor in those long temple fights. You just want to be able to outlive, outlast. Sometimes they're a little bit more drawn out, and they don't necessarily rely on just that quick burst. They have that. Now they need to lock in big damage, and we haven't seen a whole lot of Hammer in the last few weeks.
Hammer received a 40 HP base nerf and 30 per level. It adds up. It adds up enough. So she is a lot squishier, but still has the impact in terms of damage output during those fights. We saw so many times compositions were developed just to protect the Hammer and allow her to get that damage output, especially when you get Nexus Frenzy at level 20 and Hover Siege at 16, to the point where we saw some teams grabbing 3 Imposing Presence.
True.
That never would have happened 2 or 3 months ago.
No.
And that just goes to show you the strength that Hammer had. So seeing that HP nerf I'm okay with it, even though I play a ton of Hammer. I think it's the right call for Blizzard to make in terms of if you're gonna take her down.
Scooby approves. It's okay, Blizzard.
But as a Hammer player, say, okay, yeah, she's probably really strong. Like we saw her having a lot of success in this last patch. That's fine because you can still make use of her. If your team is quite skilled at that particular composition, she shouldn't be getting touched at all or very little. So that's cool. I like to stand there. So what I'm trying to get at, bottom line, is that she's still playable.
Apparently Stitches is too, because compLexity, they believe in him, scooping him up once again. They have the control, and with Sky Temple, there are these guaranteed locations where you know the fight's going to be happening. There's a lot of situations where the hook can be incredibly impactful. Do they have the follow-up, and can they make it work?
That's right. And aside from Polymorph, not yet. So we'll have to, when it comes time to looking at their last pick, we'll have to kind of theorycraft a little bit about what's left on the table and what they can do to follow up for those hooks to capitalize on it.
Do you think that we might see the double tank, the Diablo, picked up here? Because I think it might be on the table, because in the past we had seen Putrid Bile, Lightning Breath paired up as two kind of damage-dealing, huge health pool frontliners.
It could happen, but I'm almost willing to bet that Cloud9 is actually going to take Diablo. Pairs so well with Illidan. I'm just not expecting to see them pick anything other than Diablo, but we weren't really expecting to see Muradin or Arthas. So perhaps what is standard or is in the meta now for Warriors is a bit out the window.
And okay.
Yeah. All right. So this is something that we have seen off and on a little bit. It sort of shifts in and out of the meta, but the Sonya and the Illidan combo, the lockdown, and this is something that actually used to be paired with Uther.
And we haven't seen Uther yet.
Uther is still on the table. I would be all about them grabbing Uther for this final pick, because yes, the range on the level 20 upgrade for Divine Storm isn't. They took some of its range, I think, by 50%, but it's still like teams are making a lot of. There it is. Okay, so the leap, metamorphosis, tons of AOE damage from Volagena, and the stun lockout from Uther. Thumbs up.
I think
thumbs up from Maelstrom's.
I think the biggest thing that we have to consider here, though, when it comes to Uther, is he's seen a lot of changes, but the big one that is notable in this style that you're talking about is sprint has been removed.
That's true.
And that's going to make executing this a lot more, a very fine line. Uther's positioning has to be exactly right when this combo is going in, and he has to be there because he can't get that additional movement speed. Now, he's received a lot of new talents, and I've actually been theory crafting a lot. We were actually playing. Now, I don't think they're going to do this. We were actually playing with King Caffeine today, right?
Yep.
And I was telling him about the tank Uther that I think is going to become more than viable. He received Amplified Healing. He received some new talents. He has his own Resurgence at level 20, where his Ghost form will actually revive him at 50% health on a 3-minute cooldown. So he has Resurgence. And
cool.
I think Uther has a really, really powerful place in this game. And he was actually playing Sonya in that game with my tank Uther.
You're right. Conspiracy theories.
Stroking my beard. He's stealing my strats.
Man, I'm so excited. You're just like, talking about Uther and the need for even stronger positioning moving forward. Like, that just gets me so excited.
Yeah.
I love it. Like, it's just like them making these small changes, Blizzard, of course, I mean, like, okay, we're going to take this away because we felt there was no counterplay. Now, you can still make this work. You just got to be on point. And that's what really needs to happen for competitive heroes to really catch a lot of people's attention. It's this game is tough to play, and when it is executed flawlessly, it is beautiful. It is beautiful.
And I'm gonna be talking about Uther this entire game because I'm a support main when it boils down to it, and we've been waiting for the time that Divine Shield would come into the meta, and I hate to sound crazy, but I think it's more than possible with this composition.
Yeah, you crazy.
I'm crazy.
Yeah, you crazy. I think that's
Bag of flips?
That's done. Yeah, I'll put a bag of. You want to put a bag of flips on this?
Okay, bag of flips.
Bag of flips on Divine Storm or Divine Shield.
Yes, Divine Shield.
Okay.
For me.
All
Divine
right,
Storm
I'm
for
down.
you.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Game number 3 underway. Flips are on the table.
Yes.
We bet with pretzels here.
We do bags of pretzels. This is the life that we lead. All right, we actually didn't get a chance to talk too much about the Zeratul as the final pickup. So they have also opted. This is very similar draft to Game 1 compLexity side. They also took Cigar, Zeratul, Stitches, Uther, and Tassadar. So very close, just swapping out the Brightwing for Uther. So they're going to try their hand at the double lockout composition. Now, Jake and I were talking about this a little bit between the games. It felt as though the Maw and the Void Prison weren't exactly timed on any of the times we saw them used. They weren't timed out well enough to either lock out enough members of the opposing team to capitalize on it, or they weren't staggered in the right way. So we'll have to see if compLexity finds a different take on it to really try to capitalize on that playstyle.
Yeah, the lockup just didn't really seem to ever have that effect that we were looking for. But let us introduce our teams. And on the blue side, we do have compLexity Gaming with McIntyre on Zeratul. It's going to be Kianda playing the Tassadar, Blinks on Brightwing, Trommel on Zagara, and we have Urho on Stitches. I will fix the UI, and we will keep on going on.
And on the red side, for Cloud9 Maelstrom, we have K1 Pro getting to play his girl Jaina once again. Biceps on Vala. Dunk Train's going to be playing Uther. King Caffeine playing Sonya. And I Dream on Illidan. Man, I'm so excited. I love this composition. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a little bit biased. I play a little bit of Sonya in my time. And I love this super aggressive leap style with the Metamorphosis to follow up. I think it's just a cool way to approach the game. And the hook thrown out over the wall to Biceps. Of course, is going to have quite a bit of mobility once the polymorph wears off to vault out of there, but still finding himself quite low. It's a statement play. I like it.
It is a statement play in Kubi.
Scouting drone.
It's happening. We're seeing block on Uther. This is the start of the tank style, and it's Dunk Train playing it. I
am so sad right now because when Jake makes these wild, ridiculous calls, and they sometimes happen to work out correctly.
It only works out correctly on supports because I am a support main. I know everything. I'm all seeing.
Oh my goodness! Do you hear the pretentiousness in his voice, everyone? It's just.
Anyways, we do see that scouting drone on the like you mentioned, and then it's going to be the Uther Sonya in the front line with that block picked up. Now, we're going to keep a close eye on the build here from Dunk Train. Of course, Uther seeing a lot of changes, but just across the map, I mean, it's just really both teams soaking those lanes until the first temple spawn happen, which we see happening here in just about 10 seconds.
That's right. 1:30 is when we'll see the top and mid temples. We'll have to see which temple either team decides. Sometimes we've seen both teams just split them completely. One will take top, one will take bottom. More often than not, there's an aggressive play towards one of the lanes to try to pick up a fort. We've seen that in the past. It looks as though we might actually see something of a split with a bit of soak in the bottom lane for McIntyre and iDream respectively.
Yeah, they're just kind of duking it out, making sure they soak that bottom lane up on their quest to 4. Presently, it looks like it's a little bit in favor of our red team being Cloud9, but of course, it's just in terms of when the minions happen to die in their respective lanes. And yeah, we're just going to see level 4 hit very soon.
So block was taken on Sonya. She has seen a lot of changes to her Fury generation in the last patch, not this one that just hit, but the one previously. And Shot of Fury is, it gives you about half of your mana pool back, quote-unquote mana pool, it's a Fury pool. But she also generates more on other things, so you can't, stock up as much Fury. So we'll have to see if the Fury generation runs low in any of these team fights to justify having taken block.
All right, so Uther could have picked up Amplified Healing. But he did go with the shield. Now, this just gives him a little bit more utility. It goes both ways. Both are very tanky abilities. This just gives him flexibility and not necessarily that same self-sustain. And there's no double healer, so I think this probably makes sense as the better option, even if he does go for that tank style.
Jake's just like keeping his fingers crossed, like, I need it. Divine Storm, man. I think I'm going to be getting a bag of flips. I'm real excited because, boy, am I hungry for those flips.
Okay, well, we'll find out. Now, this is typically the time in which we see those Giants already pick up. And you can see King Caffeine is well aware that's something they want to do, just kind of getting aggressive, pushing on forward, like so, looking for the enemy team.
And yeah, it looks as though they are going to catch the timing on this very well. They will offensively steal these Giants that complexity had started. Not the worst thing in the world for complexity, but it is a bit of a step back, something that they have to deal with moving forward. Not going to interfere too much with the timing of the bottom temple, which should spawn around 4:40-ish, 4:45, maybe somewhere in there. It's 2 minutes after the final shots of either of the first two temples have been spawned. So just to keep an eye on that as to how these teams rotate, how the map pressure, especially keep an eye on the two bruiser camps that are in the upper right, upper left side of the map. And yeah, we can actually see that Sonya is rotating forward. It might actually end up timing out just to put pressure on the top side of the map while the fight is happening bottom.
In the bottom lane, like you said, yeah. And a lot of times we'll see teams, just cap these, have them dead early and wait to cap. As soon as those temples are about to spawn, they just time it out perfectly, but they know that timing exactly, and they just scoop it up as soon as the temples are spawning. They'll be up in just about 10 seconds at the 4 minute and about 20-second mark, and level 7 has been picked up in Uther. Just sticking to pretty standard stuff. He's going for cleanse. Block level 1, the only weird thing we've seen at this point in time, and I like this aggression, they're stealing the bruisers. So they've got the double bruisers on the map, and now they can just leave, rotate down to the bottom lane, and continue to take the fight there. But so much damage coming in from the side. Kyonda, very low. The hook comes in onto Biceps, forcing the vault out, and Kyonda is not going to get away. So close.
Who was the one that got hooked? I didn't quite catch. Was that the Envenom that was thrown down onto that actually killed Tassadar?
No, it was Vala that got hooked in.
Okay,
so
all right.
It was Jaina's Vena.
Envenom, yeah, right.
Jaina's, yes, Envenom.
Oh my god, that would have been so unfortunate. I can't count the amount of times that I've been doing running away or something like that and throwing a hook down, and having a teammate next to me that's just about dead. It's like, oh god, but it didn't end up being what was the nail in the coffin.
This is huge for Cloud9. They not only did they get that huge fight, they picked up the kill. They stole the bruisers, so they have 2 bruiser camps. And iDream took the entire bottom temple. Their quest to level 10 is a full level ahead, and they're right around the corner at this point in time.
So we've mentioned the double lockout composition that complexity is sporting right now with the Void Prison and Maw. It's going to have to be very impactful. And I'm going to need to see some really, really awesome positioning from those two spells, because I'll be straight up honest with you, Cloud9 Maelstrom's composition only gets way stronger hitting level 10 in comparison to complexities. Now, if like I said, if they're on point with these two lockout abilities, they can prove me wrong. But with the leap, the metamorphosis, divine storm, and just the 2 AoEs from Vala and Jaina, it's going to get so scary. And they're going to have to be so careful.
Look at the scouting drone. It just barely doesn't reveal the position of the boss. It does provide safety, but it seems like they are suspicious after seeing the Illidan walk past, and they are going to realize that this boss is being taken. Can they do anything about it?
They can't. There's no way, because they have level 10 over them. Had they been able to stall it out just a little bit longer so they can hit their heroics themselves, maybe. Wow, look how aggressive they are.
Yeah, they are just in their face. They've got that boss pickup. They've got their heroics, and just reading through the heroics, it is going to be the Water Elemental, the Rain of Vengeance, Divine Storm, Heroic Leap, and the Metamorphosis. And you talked about the power potential. It is there, and we do see that Mega Control available. My only concern for the side of complexity is, do they have the damage follow-up to blow them up after getting the lockdown?
And something we should mention is that they can use these abilities defensively, and King Caffeine actually has to use his leap to get out. This is going to cause a full retreat from Cloud9 Vortex, and we're not going to see too much of a chase just out unless there's a really nice hook on point. Actually, did he throw it out and actually accidentally hit a giant? No, he didn't. Okay. Wasn't going to push too far forward to try and catch Dunk Train. But this buys them a little bit of time. Leap does have a fairly sizable cooldown at 70 seconds, so this is really what's going to start a lot of their team fights. So if Complexity is really reading into this, they can try to get aggressive and force positioning.
Yeah, well, I mean, the hooks are what they need. They had that hook that nearly picked up Caffeine in that last fight, and they just need to continue making those kind of plays, because a hook Void Prison, a hook Maw to eliminate a target, that's what they have to do. But this big rotation coming out the Trumbull, he will be blown up immediately. Divine Storm connecting with 3 targets, and the Maw is used to disengage, but Metamorphosis cannot be stopped. He is moving on forward. McIntyre seems to be his target, but the poly from Brightwing may be enough, but not for Urho.
doesn't have the Putrid Vial available anymore to try to get himself out of that unfortunate position, and they chose the moment, and I just don't think the Trummel or compLexity were expecting the rotation from that side. They eliminated Zagara so fast, which just caused a full retreat from compLexity to get off of that temple. And at this point, we're seeing so much structural damage. This game has been, although the kills are low, the map control has been to Cloud9 the entire time. They have been ahead in levels the entire time. They're just showing dominant and confident positioning.
Now, iDream, on the other hand, it will be blown up here. There is no saving him. The heroic leap goes down, but this could be terrible for King Caffeine. Now, the blink coming out from Blanks, getting him to safety, and they are going to manage to pick up that kill on Vala. K1 Pro laying out the damage. McIntyre, does he have he has no mana. He has first aid, and the heal's coming out from Brightwing, but he doesn't have enough mana to actually use his blink to get out of the situation. And they have managed to take a really nice team fight, bring them back into this game, but they are still down a full level.
That's right, and there's of course no mule available for either side, so any team that has a significant amount of momentum at any point in this game will find themselves with, irreparable damage to structures. At this point, there's so much for compLexity to chew through with these shots on that they haven't even taken a fort yet, which is, yes, that fight was nice, but they're going to have to pull a lot more of those to really bring themselves back in this game.
Yeah, but it could be the start of something. A lot of this is about just momentum and confidence, so we'll see what they're able to do in this series. But speaking about momentum, I mean, there are Merc camps being picked up across the map for Cloud9, continuing to hold on to that map control.
That's right. Bit of rotation presence in mid for Cloud9. Vortex, they might actually be having their eye on the Bruiser camp. They tried to make a steal once again.
And McIntyre scouts this out. They're well aware of his presence, but right now, the rest of the team of compLexity, they're here in the bottom. They pick up those Giants, and now they have to rotate up, but will it be too little too late? No. It looks like Cloud9 is just being very cautious, camping around this situation.
They're finding themselves very far forward, almost next to the territory of the opposite side. Cloud9 Maelstrom they're out there. They're looking for this. They want to steal this camp, and everyone is well aware of this. For the compLexity side, he's getting in there. He has the Putrid Vial to lock it out.
Where's the Void Prison? There it is, connecting with 3 targets. Maw does pick up a large number of the enemy team, but look at the damage coming down. The heroic leap connecting with 3 as well, and the damage is real for both sides. Blanks, Urho, they're both going down. iDream just barely getting away with a sliver of life left, and the Uther Ghost has done his job.
The Uther heals were so on point. They almost had enough coordination between the Maw and the Void Prison to stall out the fight long enough. Not quite there, and actually that was one of those tipping point type of fights where if they had, if compLexity had picked up a couple kills, after those Void Prisons and got, they would have swung the fight very heavily in their favor. As it was, the leap was very well on point. Sonya was able to stay alive just long enough with that Whirlwind to really try to lock out that damage, and they were able to pick themselves up on a 4-1 victory.
Really just clean fighting, and we talked about the impact of maybe Void Prison and Maw, and they were both used there, but as soon as they wore off, that heroic leap just did wonders, and they no longer had the disengage, and they just weren't able to capitalize soon enough on the potential kills earlier. Yeah, I think they didn't even manage to maintain their mercenaries camp, so this game is really looking good for Cloud9 right now.
We have 2 temples spawning in mid and top. Level 16 has just been hit for Cloud9 Maelstrom. This is going to give them a very large leg up. They have all of their heroics available, just about the same for compLexity, but still, that level advantage is going to be very big, and they're going to have to be very choosy. compLexity is about when they take their fights. See, look, you can see McIntyre's just very carefully scouting out this Shroud here. Okay, and actually Dunk Train does get hooked. It's not going to be enough.
That forced cleanse out, though. And,
it did.
That is a nice window that they have where cleanse cannot be used.
It's about 30 seconds, so they're going to have to act on it very soon. I don't know if they really have the positioning for it. They don't want to end up hooking one of those bosses. And you can see the spot that Dunk Train has put himself in so that he can't get hooked once again. It's a really smart play.
Yeah, that's actually a great thing to point out. I like the rotation with McIntyre going to the top lane, but he's going to be caught out with the Sonya and iDream, and that forces out Void Prison. Now, he's not even safe at this point in time, bolting over the wall, but they just seem to have every single option covered. Wormhole going in. There is the phase shift from Brightwing, but McIntyre continuing to be chased. Vala and Illidan will be able to blow him. Oh my goodness, he mounts up. The chase continues. He's going to be... Metamorphosis has been used to pick him up for heroic in the end, but Brightwing fell felt during all that action. We tried to follow both. We saw neither kill.
We needed the Benny Hill theme to be playing during that entire thing, because that is just really wacky, like the amount of heroics that were thrown just to keep a couple people alive. But still, as you mentioned, yeah, pretty unfortunate that Brightwing ended up phase shifting up with the hopes to save Zeratul. They both ended up dying, and the momentum lead that Cloud9 Maelstrom has continues to grow.
Now we see the top keep just fell. The middle keep is going to take a lot of damage. Ammunition is just about out here, but the boss will be scooped up nice and quickly by Cloud9. And like you said, that momentum, they have it right now. They really have it.
They do. Still, level 16, that is double bombs, that's critterized, that's fishing hook. A lot of utility has just been unlocked at level 16 for complexity. They need to work as hard as they can to capitalize on this. I can't stress enough how impactful that fishing hook is for setting up disadvantageous fights for Cloud9 Maelstrom.
And they need, like you said, they absolutely, structurally, they're so far behind.
Yeah.
The fact that a 4 is still standing for Cloud9 is just like, it's bad. It's a really tight spot, but those hooks can turn this game around. But look at this aggression. They're just marching down the middle lane. They know the boss is keeping them distracted, and one more hit from just about any ability will pick up a kill. The hook does not connect.
He did preemptively cleanse himself. He was able to dodge it, but it was nice. They realized that this is the only way that complexity is going to get back in this game is through a very dicey hook. And King Caffeine's waiting for the positioning. Is he going to throw the leap down?
Well, there's a VP just connecting with the heals, but the damage is going in. iDream backing up the best he can, but now Uther is out of that. The heals not going to be present in time, it seems. And Kyonda, oh my goodness, not able to pick up a kill.
The one time that a wall, you regret not killing that wall, was what able to keep iDream alive. And Kyonda, although he has the dimensional shift, is actually able to double shift and juke them a little bit. iDream will be in position to capitalize on this kill. And Cloud9 Maelstrom takes another very, very favorable team fight.
Look at their health pools. Look at their health pools. This is just disgusting. The keep falls. The bottom lane is completely pushed out. They've got giants sieging up and a temple and spawned in the top. If they take this keep and just back up to that temple, it's pretty much lights out here for complexity.
Yeah,
that is 3.
That is the most guaranteed way to take this, especially when they have some merc pressure in the bottom lane. They can very easily, safely back up, rotate up, and one temple, as you mentioned, will kill the core from 100 to 0 with full shields. Wow. What convincing play.
It really has been, I mean, just showing their rotation, showing their control over that map. Once they got a footing on the map, they just held on to it.
Just didn't let go.
Rotated, perfectly every single time. No one caught out of position ever, and they dealt with the hooks in a very, very convincing fashion. This is the final Hail Mary. Hail Mary.
Well, the leap is actually going to connect onto 3 people. The Metamorphosis follow-up is also their K1 Pro, unloading tons of damage. That's what Jaina does best. And the Maw is thrown down, is actually able to lock out a couple of members of Cloud9 Vortex, but the Rain of Vengeance is also amazing. iDream is there to follow up with the chase, and that is going to be all but lights out for complexity.
Wow, that rain was just on point, and they could sit on that temple if they wanted to, but they don't need to. The VP used to buy a bit of time, but this is a 5v3 situation. Caffeine taking a good chunk of damage. It's going to be just a-okay, and we see it going down. I.O. Kubi, a bag of flips. Divine Storm was picked up in that game.
Yes.
And game number 3 is going to the side of Cloud9 Maelstrom, putting the series at a 2-1 lead for Cloud9.
And Jake, I'll be honest with you. The combos for Cloud9 Maelstrom were good. A couple of times they had like 2 or I'd say at most 2 of like 4 of the components for the combo. And they still had a very convincing game. I think that complexity really should do everything in their power to not let that draft happen again. Because they could. How many times do we see Leap, Metamorphosis, and Divine Storm all executed at once? It didn't happen.
It won fights.
But they could have executed even better.
They could.
That's the scary thing. Like once they get warmed up with that type of strategy, like it could have been even more one-sided.
They just had so many options though, because like you said, that trio didn't necessarily happen. Sometimes we saw Rain of Vengeance
the positioning
substituted.
It gives
Sometimes
them more flexibility
Blizzard substituted in. And every single hero, all 5 heroes synergized so well from one heroic going down. Everyone had a follow-up, and there wasn't a lot of overlap. So although we didn't see that one specific scenario, it didn't matter because that draft was just so strong from Cloud9.
Could happen.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to say.
You're right.
So there's so much flexibility. Like what you're getting at is that there's flexibility. Anyone can step in to really follow up on that combo that could happen, and the fact that it could be executed better. I'd say, if Maelstrom's executing at 60%, don't give him a chance to do better.
Right? That's true. And if anybody was doubting Vala without battle momentum, well, you can look at the charts here. She still hits pretty hard. And of course, we have these new stat screens after game, so that's actually a really
fun stuff.
Wonderful
Because we forget to bring this up all the time during the end of the game.
We do, so we can now talk about the numbers
that.
and just kind of looking at the numbers. I mean, you can see it's very far forward in favor of the side of our red team, which was in fact Cloud9 Maelstrom, who took that game. The damage output was real, and the Uther heals were more than enough.
Jake, I gotta bring it up. Stitches 0-3.
He is.
Every team that has grabbed Stitches from this point has not been able to execute. It's not even just that Stitches happens to be on the losing team. It's just the hooks are.
They're not
teams
doing
are playing around it so well.
They're not doing. It's not that the hooks are bad. It's
No.
just the enemy teams are just so seasoned with dealing with it.
Yeah.
And it's not getting the effectiveness that we once saw. On top of that, losing Pulverize, that stun option no longer there. And the only stun Stitches has as a result, the only interruption period is his hook.
Yeah.
You can gorge too.
Gorge
maybe that's the necessary pickup now. But it's been out of the meta for weeks at this point in time.
That's true. So we're either going to need to see some large stepping up of the Stitches play, or just stop playing him. I know it sounds crazy because he's been such a huge staple.
Your first love. You're just saying throw one.
Yeah, I'm not convinced yet with the play. Like you said, the teams are just so good at playing around that impactful hook. And, well, I'm curious to see if either of the teams pick up on this, or if they're just, feeling like, that wasn't quite our game. And we can do better with Stitches.
Well, we will see if Stitches will be played in game number 4, guys. We're going to get ready, set that lobby up, and we'll be back in just a few, so stay with us for some more Heroes of the Storm action.
listen to this. Fucking
Alrighty, guys, welcome back here to the ESL Major League Americas.
That's right. I'm Kubi, and with me I've got Solid Jake, and we are going into game number 4 between compLexity and Cloud9 Maelstrom. The map is going to be Garden Terror, which, fun fact, I believe Cloud9 is undefeated on, and compLexity has not played on it, surprisingly.
Right. So actually, we saw Cloud9 win on Black Hearts, and that was the only other map that compLexity has no recorded results on here in the ESL Major League. So these are the two maps that they likely don't like too much.
Yeah, it's possible they just ban it out as often as possible, which kind of makes sense. It fits into their aggressive style.
Yeah.
They tend to make drafts and really play to getting early kills, getting early ganks to give them that level lead moving forward. But Garden of Terror, I will say, is a little bit more forgiving in that sense. You can kind of lose the early game a little bit, not saying a lot, but and make up for it with a longer game that you know will probably get you to level 20 if you have a hero that seems to pick up a lot of steam. And look at that, compLexity banning out Jaina. They say we've had enough of this, and she has been putting in tons of work in those fights, really sort of sealing the deal for a lot of those combos, because yes, stuns are nice, but if you don't have the damage to follow that up, we've seen that time and time again with the Zagara Zero tool, then you're not going to get any kills. Jaina's really good for that.
She actually might be the #1 hero killer in the game. She's up there, and some people might argue for some other heroes, but Jaina definitely has the potential to be that #1 hero killer, especially with these new the new buff we're seeing, and with K1 Pro controlling that hero. It's a pretty good hero killer.
I think that's you have a smile on your face. I don't know. Are you making a joke or something? I don't. All right, fair enough. So this breaks the chain for the bans. Okay, up until this point, we've seen ETC and Rhaegar banned out every time. Maelstrom has banned out Rhaegar every single game moving through this series. Will they continue to ban Rhaegar? Are they afraid of compLexity taking ETC first pick if they do that? These questions and more answered on next week's episode.
All right, well, we'll see. Now, things have already been mixed up. They will likely actually just say, okay, you know what, fine, let's ban out. Okay, they just don't want the cow. I was going to say maybe you go for another top damage. This gives compLexity this is the first time Rhaegar has been an option. And yes, Healing Ward was nerfed for everyone.
Yeah. That just nerfs like supports as a whole.
Right.
Oftentimes, I guess Uther is really the only pickup. Sometimes Brightwing Brightwing's been getting a little bit more popularity as of late, but really, Healing Ward is a theme that is common to a lot of the supports. So that getting nerfed to Rhaegar doesn't necessarily mean that he will be picked more. It's going to matter a lot to the rest of his composition, whether there is an Illidan available. Now, if compLexity picks Rhaegar to start, I can almost guarantee you that Cloud9 will immediately scoop up Illidan.
True. And that makes the most sense, because if you give Illidan Rhaegar, the synergy is just a little bit too much. And that's kind of the tough decision that compLexity is faced with. Do we allow them to have Illidan Rhaegar? Probably not. And yeah.
Okay, all right. So we see Rhaegar. Does Cloud9 scoop up the Illidan? I think it would be a mistake. Not necessarily that they should be forced to build a composition around Illidan, but that they just shouldn't let compLexity have it. Because more often than not, you give Illidan time to do work on those enemy in those team fights. Yeah, it's just a matter of his health pool.
It's true, and well, we see they are thinking hard about this. Picking up Illidan is almost a necessity, and there he is. Now scooping up Uther, or Vala, another really strong option. They just have that damage. They have a really strong damage output. Does compLexity want to run the double support?
Well, we've seen that grabbed in the past, and it's made the most splash, most efficiency with Illidan to run on top of that, like you said, just to try to get, especially with Uther Rhaegar, where those are the two quote-unquote best supports, they have the most burst between the two of them, right? So that's what really helps Illidan to shine. Is it necessary to run double support if you don't have someone that's really jumping into those front lines? compLexity has in the past run Kerrigan, which is kind of similar to Illidan, not quite the same, obviously. The effectiveness and escapes aren't quite there. Still, the effectiveness in terms of jumping into the team fights, it can happen.
Oh, compLexity actually leaning towards Zagara again. We saw this a lot last week in Titan Arena 2. They would almost always
it was like every time second pick was Zagara. They feel very comfortable. Trouble is obviously very, very good on Zagara and gets work done.
He does. And Tychus, the first game today where we've seen him played, but he's seen a lot of use in the past, and he didn't get changed at all in this patch, so he's the same hero.
Excuse me, Jake, he had some of his abilities renamed.
Sizzling
attacks.
Sizzling strikes, and
he works at
problem solvers.
Sizzlers.
so funny. And of course his face just got ruined, but that's okay. That's another problem.
All right, so the effect, actually Tychus, I want to say it's compLexity that will sometimes opt to run Odin. More often than not, it is Laser Drill. The Draken Laser Drill is the heroic of choice for most teams, but I think compLexity will run Odin if they feel it makes a little bit more sense in the sense they need more AoE. Right, so they have the new W ability, which is slow and AoE damage. Also the Ragnaros missiles. All of these things, plus the auto attacks. Yeah, he can really dish the damage out. The single target damage isn't quite as high in Odin, but the Laser Drill, it depends on what they need. Cloud9 Maelstrom still looking for next two set. They haven't secured their support and they haven't picked up their warrior. I think at this point, I keep saying Diablo, but no one
I want Diablo Tyrande.
Diablo Tyrande could definitely work for sure. And we've seen in the past, Illidan Diablo is such a strong combo.
It is. Chen Diablo is actually very good also, and I'm okay with Chen on this map. I don't like it as much as Cursed, but it definitely has its place. And
I don't know about Chen on this map. I'll put a bag of flips on it. I don't really like it. I put bag of flips where I know I can win.
Where you're confident. Not taking the bait this time. Well, Chen will likely not be picked up, but Uther, he's going to be snagged, and there is not necessarily a...
There's a lot of damage output, right? I think they should try to lock whatever warrior they feel comfortable with. I think they should lock in here because there's.
You think so?
There's a lot of options for
but they
damage
could get Tassadar.
They could get
and having Oracle, having the damage output, and the secondary healer. They have such a solid comp. Their tank there's all the options, literally everything except ETC and whatever compLexity picks up. Muradin. I mean, how? Okay, they want Brightwing.
Double cleanse.
Yeah, and this is just to make
end up taking double cleanse, but it is the options there.
It's a deny because Uther and Brightwing are the two best supports at dealing with Illidan.
Yeah, that's a very good point to make, and we've seen in the past that Brightwing has been scooped up, and Rewind has been taken both games that Brightwing has been grabbed with the Illidan, especially on the other side of the team. Yeah, Rewind and Polymorph does work on Illidan. So why not steal that to deny? They have decent amount of damage output.
Yeah.
It's going to be sustained over time. Not a lot of burst for both teams. Yeah, Strafe is semi-bursty in the sense that it'll deal the damage over a couple seconds, but yeah, nothing that's shock and awe. I say shock and awe as because it was played.
Hinderless
That's what it was
blast.
called back in the day when it was played a lot. All right, Jake, nice try. Nice try.
Okay, Meriden is going to be picked up, so it's incredibly unlikely that we'll see the double tank. And I like Meriden a lot because he's going to be really hard to kill, and he deals with Illidan to relatively
Yes,
good effectiveness.
I like that. The question is, do we see Malf for the double support? I don't know if their damage is high enough.
I'd prefer
Yeah,
Tass.
Tass is very good. So you mentioned that, of course, it would have been a great pickup for Cloud9. Would still be a good deny.
Lily is actually still an option. As
Lily
crazy
is
as that is.
surprisingly good versus Illidan.
Yeah.
And especially compositions that don't have high burst damage output, Lily really can shine. And what are the stun options that you're going to be able to get close enough to Lily to do?
Right, there's no more sprint. Polymorph
No sprint.
is a big threat. Rain of Vengeance
It's
is
a
big
threat, but you can see it coming. It's not like I guess she could sprint forward to do it. Yeah, that's a good point.
But Shadow Charge on Diablo is still an option. We talked about
Yeah.
Diablo being a very
Yeah.
viable option, and they have to think about that. Because you can get the increased range on that Shadow Charge and just fly on in and just stop the cups and back on out with Diablo.
So Tassadar, the pickup for complexity, it makes a lot of sense. It's not a deny play anymore at this point, of course. It would make zero sense for Cloud9 Maelstrom to grab Tassadar with the absence of a tank.
Correct.
So we're looking at...
Absence of a tank, they have Uther.
God.
It's
really trying to push this tank Uther thing.
it'll
Maybe,
happen
maybe.
someday.
Maybe.
Not today.
One of Jake's wild claims here. It's got to be Diablo, right? No, go.
All right, so congrats.
We're
to
going to game
Complexity,
5.
going to game 5.
I kid. Of course, Stitches is still has a lot of potential to disrupt teams. Just like the fact that any character has a hook, any hero has a hook, it's always going to have a place in the meta. It's just
Yeah.
We haven't seen any hooks that have just been super impactful so far. Maybe we will see something like the Glaurung of yesteryear, where it was just he was the only one playing Stitches and like really landing those hooks.
That was
But,
a good day, a good time in our community.
A good time.
Where Glaurung was like kind of like the lone Stitches, and he would just
Yeah.
throw out these blind hooks that would just end games. Essentially, he would just win team fights because of just like they might be here,
Yeah, and
of
so
course
we'll need to see some of those crazy hook actions. So we'll let them know we are ready to go, and we will get into game number 4 between Complexity Gaming and Cloud9 Maelstrom.
Yeah, and just gonna confirm with the teams that they're good.
Yep. All right, Jake, do you think that the pattern will continue? Make a bold claim right now.
Yeah, yes, I think we're going to game 5, Kubi.
Okay.
I think we're going to game 5. I think yes, Stitches in general has a strong kit, but there's not even a lot of follow up. I mean, it's really just
What do
they have the stun and they have the poly,
Uther Brightwing.
which is great.
Single target damage for Illidan and Vala isn't that high.
They don't have that burst. They don't have the Hunter's Mark. Criterize at 16, sure. Are they going to get the 16 at that point in time? We'll find out.
And then you also have to consider what is the lockout for the rest of the team. They could go Emerald Wind. That's a possibility.
Yeah.
But that's time that you want to be spending really trying to maximize the damage. So you have to poly, run forward with the sprint, make sure that you lock out the rest of the enemy team. And we are playing a Garden of Terror where there's a few areas where there are chokeholds, but it's nothing like what we would see on Cursed Hollow, etc. So, yeah, I got to give the draft to Complexity here if I had to pick one of the two teams. I like Stitches. I think the Stitches can still work, but you really need to make sure you tailor your team comp. At the very least, they pick Stitches at the end. I think first picking Stitches at this point in the draft, unless you can secure one of like Tyrande or Jaina with it, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So they feel comfortable going Stitches. They think they can make it work. Obviously, they wouldn't have grabbed it if they didn't feel comfortable with it. So
I mean, yeah, obviously they have that experience playing a lot of Stitches, and maybe
Yeah.
it's just a comfort thing, but it's hard to deny the fact that the hooks haven't been as impactful, and his entire kit has been hindered a bit in this last patch.
Gutted.
So gutted.
I get it. I
He's
get it.
got
I
guts.
get it.
He's got-
I get
okay,
it.
all right.
Doesn't mean I'm going to give you credit for
Okay,
it.
that's fine. That's fine.
Well, loading up the game here. This is the 4th, and it is match point here
That's
for
true.
our blue team, Cloud9, with Biceps playing as Uther K1 Pro on Vala. We've got King Caffeine playing Stitches, the cursed hero. And, of course, Dunk Train is going to be playing Brightwing, and rounding out, it could be iDream on Illidan.
And for the red side, we have compLexity Gaming. They are on the ropes. Backed into the corner. We have McIntyre on Tassadar, Arrow on Muradin, Trumbull's going to be playing Zagara, Blinks on Rhaegar, and Kionda on Tychus. So do or die, they got to win. They got to win to continue on in this series. They really want to keep that winner's side advantage. Both teams do, of course. And, of course, we can be expecting Cloud9 to be bringing the heat to really wrap this series up.
Well, looking at the talents, it's pretty much standard stuff across the board, but Brightwing picking up that bribe. There's a lot of mercenary camps on this map. Also opens up the doors to a potential, stealing of offensive giants and stuff like that. So, going to be fun to see how Dunk Train decides to utilize that mechanic on this map.
Seeing Perfect Storm grabbed for Arrow, I got to disagree with it. I think that the reverberation is too impactful.
We talked about the hooks needing to have their effectiveness. And
King Caffeine.
yeah, pulling in the Trummel, putting them in trouble, and blowing them up.
Yep. All right, so yeah, no reverberation for Muradin.
Yeah, I mean, it's reverberation. We talk about it. It helps deal with Illidan's burst potential quite a bit. Just slows his auto attacks down in general. And like we said, those stuns, they're not here. They really just have. Muradin's the only stunner they have, in theory, to just kind of lock down the Illidan to blow him up quickly.
King Caffeine getting into position to perhaps grab another hook. It is Trumbull this time, but he lands on the other side of the wall, the other side of King Caffeine. They were hoping they had everyone in position that he might glitch to the other side. Sometimes that can happen. It depends on the angle of the hook. Wasn't really the case this time, but still puts Trumbull on edge a little bit. He's going to be careful about his positioning a little bit further. So 2 for 2 for hooks right now, and they're hitting the right targets.
And Zagara is actually a massive target. She's big.
That's true.
She doesn't have a lot of mobility. And Kionda is going to get pulled in and blown up by that Arcane Flare of Brightwing, or her force a Dwarf Toss. In this early game aggression it's working out for Cloud9. I mean, we talked about Stitches not really having that impact, but already, only 2 minutes into this map, he's secured 3 hooks that have picked up 2 kills.
This is a good point. And also, we had mentioned that, compLexity, they're used to being the aggressors in the early game. And it's very possible they're down to match point. You just got to be careful about the mental strength that the team has moving forward. We've got to keep an eye on for signs of communication collapsing between the team if they're on tilt.
I mean, there's money on the line, and these teams are. I mean, Heroes is a young community. They're not used to playing for a lot of money,
right.
So that definitely can.
They're inexperienced. Most of these teams are.
Yeah, definitely something to point out. But the game is far from over. We're just at the 3-minute marker. But Cloud9, I mean, they're just taking that dominant stance, just roaming around, collecting as many seeds as they like. Takes 100 seeds to summon that first plant terror, and this bottom boss is going to put them incredibly close. I don't think it's going to be quite enough though.
No, I don't think so. They're going to be a bit short. 7 short, but still, they haven't. compLexity hasn't even started the top boss, and
hasn't started. It's at half.
I know
health.
it's half low, but this is the thing. They can get hooked. They can get hooked.
Oh my goodness! Do they try to do this? The dive in is not going to happen. Those 7 seeds, the 6 seeds.
Yeah. He actually sent a hook.
Few.
He sent a hook into the garden turret, unfortunately, putting that on the huge cooldown Arrow. Yeah, wasn't even able to. I think he needed to move a little bit further forward so that he could leap. Leap over to the wall where the Knights are, the Bruisers, to get himself to safety. If he'd done it too early, of course, would have landed in front of the wall and would have get blown up. Anyway.
But yes, it is 3 kills to 0 in favor of Cloud9 Maelstrom on the blue side, and they do have a very slight advantage in terms of night phase. In the end, neither team does get the plant terror, and it's going to be a very even game. Looking for more rotations and ganks, but they have to be wary of this Zagara pressure, because if left uncontested, he will push in so quickly.
That's a very, very good point. And we see Bruiser, Giant Camp being taken for compLexity, trying to get a little bit more map presence back.
And bruisers on the opposite side for Cloud9 Maelstrom with iDream, just very quickly picking up those bruisers, easy peasy. So one for each side, just continuing to kind of have that map control, and both teams will respectively get the opposite Merc camps, being the Giants, and of course, and look at it, the clairvoyance is going down on both sides as well. So both teams just playing identical. They know what to expect from the opponents, and they're just kind of fact-checking, making sure that they're safe to do what they are doing, more so than to actually know that the opponents are doing that that Merc objective.
So Jake, no scouting drone? Does this mean Stitches can do what he wants?
I mean,
it's a crazy statement to have to make.
It
but
is.
The fact that we're even seeing scouting drone is really cool. Something that hasn't been really played too much. Now that it's gotten some buffs, we've seen a little bit more use of it. It's cool.
It was definitely refreshing to see something new, but Bribe is going to have lots of impact on this game, and we can see that he's sitting at 50 stacks in Dunk. He easily could have just walked back to pick up these Giants, and I think he was just kind of holding on to those stacks for the event where he might be able to pick up his own Giants, or just for a night phase when the Giants are going to get more effectiveness, being obnoxious.
So Clairvoyance for Uther, we did see that thrown down, and Brightwing is still making a decision for level 7, trying to decide if Cleanse is really what's needed, or do they want to go for that extra healing in the regen? Oh, no, it's Gust of Healing. Gust of Healing. So that's an activatable Pulsing, and McIntyre is going to have to use Eat, not in time, and finds himself dying there. It's a 4-0 advantage kill-wise for Cloud9 Maelstrom.
And that's the power of Brightwing, because Tassadar is a really hard target to kill. Phase shift down, and then the stun came up from Uther, and then he just followed up immediately with that polymorph, picking up just a really, really nice kill. And their quest to 10, well, they are going to be the first ones to get those heroics.
I think that's maybe the at least second, maybe third kill that we've seen that's like Polymorph has really done a huge amount of work, which is crazy because we talked about this before, but Brightwing has seen no changes in this last patch.
True.
Other than her being very, very slightly better because she doesn't have a healing ward, so I guess she looks, in comparison, a little bit better.
That's actually kind of a big deal, though. I mean, as small as it is, those little bits add up a lot when you consider how finely tuned and how well balanced this game actually is.
Right. But still, Polymorph, it's just as good as it used to be, and it is it's putting work in this game.
It has been, and it's going to be 7-6 until the next night phase begins. 15 seeds needed on the side of compLexity, and only 5 seeds needed for Cloud9. Both teams will receive a Plant Terror.
Yep, and level 10 has been hit for both teams really quickly. We see the Emerald Wind, no Blink Heal, and I think that the Gust of Healing is probably indicative of that. We do have Putrid Bile, Divine Storm, Metamorphosis, and Rain of Vengeance once again for Vala.
Now, right now, Stitches is collecting that final auxiliary camp, getting those Shambler seeds, and that's why you see this kind of passive position. iDream looks like he will be the one to get in the Garden Terror, and on the opposite side, it looks like it's going to be Tassadar.
Still deciding, Kionda is, on Tychus, whether or not to go Draken Laser Drill or Odin. What do you think is the right call here?
Based on hooks, I would prefer the Draken Laser Drill. The Odin becomes this massive target for a hook, but he goes for Odin.
He does.
So we'll see how that ends up panning out here. Now the terror of our blue team has gotten there first, and they're just trying to capitalize, secure more seeds.
It does combo well with Maw. That's another thing that we should mention. We've seen that in the past, Maw and the Ragnaros missiles being thrown down. That's AoE slow and damage.
Yeah. It's a huge point to make, actually, but Caffeine has to use that bile. He's receiving a lot of damage, and the Maw picking up a good chunk of people, just disrupting. Biceps getting blown up very quickly. He will end up losing his life. That is the heals, but the Ghost of Uther will continue to exist, providing as much support as possible for a short while. Now, the Plant Terror does fall. The Odin in the backline is just wailing away, dishing out so much damage. Hook going in, and Emerald Wind locking the Plant Terror into a bad spot, and that brings out the Metamorphosis of iDream, but the heals aren't there for him. Shield comes out. He's forced to back up, and the Plant Terror will expire, but it is a 5v4 situation right now.
That's right, wow. And yeah, the Maw, there's just so much to be said about that in the combination with Odin. It allows time for the Odin startup to hit. You know where the enemy team is going to be. Like, they can't run away, obviously, while they're stuck in Maw. And that, in combination with Rain of Vengeance, like all of that lined up to get themselves a very nice head start to the fight. The positioning was excellent to get rid of the Plant Terror. They were able to burn it down very quickly with the use of the Hook and the Emerald Wind. They weren't able to get the kill off of it, of course. They put a very safe hero, compLexity did, in the form of Tassadar in there who can dimensional shift to get out. So nicely played from compLexity to really capitalize on the Maw, which was well placed. They caught a couple heroes in it, and follow-ups after that were on point as well.
Brightwing soaked as long as she could. The hooks comes out onto her with the sun. The Poly Divine Storm. The Overlapped a little bit, but the Ancestor just barely does not get off. 10-second cooldown on that, but Brightwing did fall during that. We have iDream going into the front line, looking for that aggression. The heals are being enough, but that Maw is going to just remove his sustainability.
And that is just really going to be allowing them to disengage the fight. But the hook on, once again, the missed armor, Ancestral Healing was thrown down onto Blinks. Of course, it goes into a shortened cooldown, and he's able to use it again, once again, on himself. And Blinks actually stepping forward a little bit too far, gets the shield. And the Rain of Vengeance is good to pick up that kill onto Rhaegar. Kiona also finding himself in a bad spot. Trummel, no mana left. McIntyre gets hooked in Dimensional Shift. King Caffeine is hot on the trail, is going to throw down that slam, and he will be able to shield himself to get back to the gate. Trummel still finding himself blocked in, and wow, they turned that around really fast.
Oh my goodness, there's just so many close situations for everyone, but I think really what secured the deal for Cloud9 happened to be that Rain of Vengeance. I mean, everything looked good, but that Odin popped down in a situation, and Vala just lined it up, hitting 2 targets, pretty much stopping any of the damage that could have come out from the Odin, which is a lot. And they
Cigar got that Maw up really fast with battle momentum. Oh my gosh, I saw it, I was like, what? Like, how did he, do that?
True.
Like, didn't end up coinciding too well with the cooldown of Odin. Of course, they didn't have that, the strong combo that they had the first time. Still, it was nicely placed, and I thought for sure the complexity was going to take the better end of that. But like you mentioned, the rain very much on point.
And that's going to net a plant terror in favor of Cloud9 Maelstrom. Illidan once again going back to pick it up, and this time it's not terror v terror, it's just one terror, which is going to give them that advantage to finally put on some damage to the structures in this game, as all 6 Town Halls are standing in this game.
That is right, but this iDream here, and we are, in the 10-minute mark of the game, these Garden Terrors start to do a ton of structural damage. They hit much, much harder in these team fights. You have to respect them. You have to respect the rotations they can put on. They can split push very well, and we can see exactly that. He's making a quick rotation. iDream is in this Plant Terror. It's just everything on this point is on the back foot for complexity. They have to respond to this.
And yeah, that Plant Terror, I mean, they're opting to soak, but Brightwing is out soaking. That global presence is just allowing them to get their experience advantage, and they're moving towards level 16. So they're just going to continue to utilize this Terror in a way to just kind of rotate around, and Trummel, he's in a position where he could be caught out.
Yes, iDream once again rotating forward. We see the Mutalisk thrown down, just trying to get that consistent damage to get them to back up. They really need to try to regain their footing. They haven't lost any structures yet, so things aren't as bad. But really, as you mentioned before, the level difference is going to add up, and it's gonna get painful for complexity once 16 is hit for Cloud9.
And they're actually just getting double experience constantly because of Brightwing, who is still soaking that experience. Level 16 around the corner, and as soon as we see Illidan used, they just back up. They retreat. They say, okay, Avatar and Odin, 2 heroics have been used. We can actually just disengage and play very safely. There's no setup with Maw. On the flip side, Putrid Bile had to be used for our Stitches player, but this is going to give such a massive amount of momentum with 16 around the corner and 2 heroics in cooldown.
Yeah, this is very, very painful for complexity, and they're actually chokeholding themselves a little bit with the gaps between these buildings. They have to be very careful because that's, party time for Stitches to just land these free hooks. And honestly, any target at this point is good because they don't have the synergy with those heroics. Maw is still available. No Odin. There's, no Avatar. It's just so much less presence in these team fights. And really, complexity needs to stall. They need to stall for 16, and they need to stall so they can get those heroics back up.
And that's a full level, and the night phase is 20 seconds away. So right now, like you mentioned, they need to just soak, get that experience up. That's exactly what they're looking to do. They're sending Muradin down. They're going to collect the bottom jungle, but that's when we see Cloud9 getting very aggressive into the jungle of complexity.
Arrow just throwing down that sledgehammer, which does the 400% bonus damage, is able to melt those towers surprisingly fast. And we see that, Cloud9 is getting very, very aggressive with these Merc camps. They know they can get away with it. And seed-wise, they're probably going to pick themselves up, or they can choose to take a fight, or they can get, very greedy with which seed camps they opt to take.
And again, they're just utilizing that Brightwing across the map. They send everyone down bottom, and they leave Brightwing alone. She can phase shift whenever she sees fit. Now, Dunktrain going to try to do this, but if she is caught out of position, this could actually get very, very scary.
Yeah, phase shift, of course, can't be interrupted by auto attacks, but any kind of stuns that we might see, say for Muradin, etc., would knock her out of the ultimately get a kill. So she does need to be careful, like you mentioned, but it's still so valuable to have that split push.
While they're starting on this top terror, the Clairvoyance comes out from the enemy team, and they're going to just have to initiate on this. They do have level 16, they have the talents, and it looks like Biceps is having a bit of a connection issue, so this is a tough situation. Emerald Win onto Uraho is beautiful, a huge disruption, and it looks like Uther's able to re-engage, but he's so far out of position.
The positioning is so bad, unfortunately. I hate to see this kind of thing happen. Where you end up disconnecting, but the opposing team can't just stop playing the game. We don't have a pause function, unfortunately. So it's good that he's back in. We can get back into it, but it is a slight bit of a setback for Cloud9.
Very unfortunate to have that happen. iDream gets hit by the stomp, and he's going to be caught out of position if he does not run away. He's backing on out, and that's going to be a full-on retreat. They're at 99 seeds. One more before they have that terror to defend with. Is it worth the risk? No.
It really isn't, unfortunately. They can't start stacking up these deaths back. Oh, no. Biceps continuing to have some connection issues, unfortunately.
I hate to see this happen.
Yeah, you really do. There's not much else we can say about it other than, it's not really wrong for compLexity to take advantage of this and try to move forward. It's just too late in the game to ask for a replay. So,
yep. Well, we do see Caffeine just trying to continue to apply that pressure in the front. The hook goes out.
Oh, my goodness.
We do have the fishing hook, but Tassadar is going to be the hardest target to kill.
Oh, it actually doesn't even need to use his E to get out. And you can almost see the confidence that Barrel Boys has now that they've picked up this kill. They got a little bit more momentum. Some map control back, and you can see that they're pushing out a little bit more. They're getting aggressive for the seeds. They have a plant terror ready, and we're going to see how they utilize it. Do they split push? Do they just do one single large push to try to maximize on this momentum advantage that they have right now?
Well, McIntyre just kind of having a bit of indecision as to which way he would like to run today, and this is going to be his jogging path down the middle lane for a big plant. Fuzzy Body marching his way down. This is the first time that we've seen on the side of compLexity a terror without a terror opposing it.
We should also mention that the plant terror, the overgrowth is a little bit stronger, and the terror itself is a bit slower movement speed. So just keep that in mind if things look a little bit different in terms of how the plant terror is chasing after heroes. Ooh, really nice hook for King Caffeine. This is just not going to obviously get a kill on the terror. It's just going to stall it out.
Yeah,
there is still a minute and 10 seconds left. But yeah, buying time is exactly what he's doing.
And nicely done. Now that the Queen's Curse going down. Clairvoyance revealing Caffeine's position. He's going to have to be a little bit safe. During all of this, Brightwing, played by Dunk Train, sitting in the top lane, just continuing to soak ahead. Hitting 21st is just as big as hitting something like 16 first. So he's continuing to get that soak. He's got Giants he's pushing with, and that should net them A4. But no, he's going to have to come back in when he realizes the enemy team is pushing in a bit too hard.
Yeah, at this point in the game, 16 minutes in, the plant terror hits super, super hard. So whereas the Dragon Knight might be considered a detriment in teamfights other than that positioning, the polymorph and the siege damage, also just the basic auto attacks hit so hard. Something you absolutely have to respect, and understandable as to why Brightwing came back. It's no longer something they can afford to continue to soak for. With those auto attacks going down, they need an additional healer.
Well, the fort did fall, and we see Tychus is making his way there to respond to it. Plant Terror has an additional 10 seconds left on its timer, so they're just going to take out a fort. So that will leave only, one fort remaining on the side of Cloud9. Structurally, though, this game is looking great for compLexity.
Yes, with that keep down, that means we're going to have constant catapult pressure in the mid lane. And it looks as though Maelstrom is maybe taking slightly riskier strategies, and they know that they're a bit behind, especially considering that Uther Biceps has not connected back into the game. It's unfortunate, so they might realize the position they're in and that, okay, we have to take more aggressive stances in terms of catching up. They are still slightly ahead in experience to the level 20.
All right, it looks like the reconnect is underway. Once you see this name change from Uther to Biceps, he will have fully reconnected to this game. He just has to kind of catch up in the timer at this point in time. We see right now they're just kind of murking it up hard, compLexity, making sure they have control of the entire map. In 3 seconds from now, the seeds will be spawning.
Night phase is very important. Of course, this will get a Garden Terror for Cloud9 Maelstrom very quickly. Hopefully, they do. I believe they have Uther chained to Stitches, so... Or I think it's actually iDream. But it's certainly possible if you don't control him that he could go back and steal the golem, which would be super, super unfortunate. So they had to make sure they keep an eye on that. But it will be a Garden Terror for both teams. We'll have Rock'em Sock'em Plant Robot fights once again in the mid lane.
compLexity is actually being very manner. They could have gotten very aggressive in the jungle here.
Yeah.
And they opted to just split the seeds. knowing that the enemy team does have a bot player. So I would like to point that out. That is
Yeah,
a very
it's
manner
true.
move on their part. But there will be a terror picked up on both sides of the map, and the final giants are going to be picked up. You can actually start those before the plant terrors are summoned, and that will allow you to pick them up before they disappear.
We can actually see that Kionda on the complexity side is waiting to grab the Garden Terror on their side. They realize that they're sort of just cleaning up. They're making sure that the Merc camp. So the longer they can stall it out and wait till the last couple of seconds if possible, that gives them more time on the Plant Terror. Plant Terror is quite beefy at this point. The HP pool is high, and they can try to make a lot more use of the time that they have a Plant Terror while Cloud9 Maelstrom does not.
Yes, well, we can see we've got that poly going out the Queen's Curse. The Terror will be able to throw down the Overgrowth, which will pretty much eliminate any wave, any mercenary in its path, and you just see them falling oh so very quickly, and we do have the rest of the team rotating around. Now, iDream has been keeping Uther back to base in a relatively safe position just because they don't want that bot to wander in and get killed, and they're just desperately trying to wait for their ally to connect into this game.
Yep, absolutely. We're probably going to see a very defensive stance for Kionda, probably going to avoid taking any engagements because they know they have that 40-second timing window where Cloud9 Maelstrom's Garden Terror is going to expire, and they will have free reign to push. So I don't expect to see anything too aggressive, or at least anything that would point towards their Garden Terror taking too much damage.
But it is marching in. The middle lane has no catapults. They're trying to put that pressure on, and we have right wing phase shifting back on in. That Terror down to 20 seconds in its life cycle, and Caffeine is just going to try to capitalize on that with the abilities and the extra health pool that he has.
Yes. Kionda actually taking a bit of damage. Yeah, you can see King Caffeine's is also falling a bit. They also, you saw that the rotation went up forward, and they started moving into the core. I might have to change this point till after this fight.
Right.
Polymorph
Biceps
going
is
on.
back.
Yep, he is. And that's actually big. This might give Cloud9 Maelstrom the go-ahead to try and really make an aggressive play. And they do get the hook into trouble, but it is past 20. They have Bolt of the Storm is able to back out, and that's super, super huge.
That was a massive hook, but yeah, like you mentioned. But Bolt of the Storm is going to be on cooldown, and this gives them a bit of a window. Now that Terror, 20 seconds remaining, its health pool pretty low right now. They're doing a nice job putting the pressure on, but this keep is very likely going to fall.
Yes.
Kionda very low with that health bar, but a big maw picking up two members of Cloud9. Illidan in the front line all by himself, powering through Trumbull to the best of his ability, but the Ancestral Healing is going to be there and on point.
And I don't think the Bolt of the Storm is back up, so Trumbull might find himself falling in this fight. The Odin is up to put out that damage output, and we see a couple members, iDream, falling a bit low, getting the heals from Uther. It's so hard to say who's going to win this fight. Uther falls, and we have Arrowho still pushing in with the stuns.
This is level 20. Uther will respawn after this, so he's going to dish out a lot of these heals, but he will respawn.
No, he grabbed the range, actually, on the Divine Hurricane.
Oh, no. Okay.
So that is not a respawning Uther, unfortunately. It probably would have played a huge factor into surviving this team fight. And Arrow is actually able to hearth back. So a one-for-one trade. Levels are very close in advantage. They do have that huge structure advantage, which is going to translate into a large amount of push in that top and middle lane where the catapults will be streaming down.
Now, Clairvoyance revealing their position pretty much right off the bat, but they're just going to collect those seeds. This will give them a Terror very quickly, but they don't necessarily need to scoop that up. They can just continue fighting over those seeds to try to deny the Terror of the other side, because yes, there were Terrors on both sides in that last fight, but if they can manage to deny the Terror to the red team, they can actually really push in, because we're 22 minutes into the game, and he hits like a truck.
This is a very, very good point. And strategically, it is super important for complexity to try and remain in this game. So we're going to have to see how iDream plays out this Terror. Some of the level 20 talents that have been picked up before we see a fight. Rewind from Meridian. This lets him get a little bit more aggressive. He can leap in, stun, rewind, stun, leap back out if needed. Rewind also on Rhaegar just for that extra healing and sustain. The big red button for Odin, that makes it last 50% longer. Not something that would have been a big deal before the patch change, but actually Arrow getting aggressed upon, and we see that Divine Storm being thrown down.
And there's the Queen's Curse. We see Ancestral used very early in this fight, and this is actually a pretty good situation. Now, K1 Pro forced to Bolt of the Storm out with the Vala. iDream is taking so much damage to his Terror, and Biceps has disconnected once again, so he's having a lot of issues, and this is just tragic to see happen.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate. And really, it would have been a big win for complexity if they just were able to burn down the Terror. But the fact that they're going to end up trading in these bosses means that there will be a Terror available for complexity. They're down a player, not just a hero, they're down a player at this point, and it's going to be so hard for them to stop this incoming Garden Terror.
All right, so he's recovered a little bit more quickly in the situation. There is a terror being picked up on the red side, but during all of this, they've taken out 2 forts. The middle fort, bottom fort have been taken out. We do have mercenary camps pressuring in the top lane, and this terror down. He has 40 seconds left in this duration, so they can still get a lot done.
And they opt to complexity. Will take their garden tower just to provide a little bit of defense first. We'll try to wait out the duration of it. They cannot lose this terror from the complexity side of things. This is their win condition, more or less, is to try to have their terror available while Cloud9's doesn't. Cloud9 is really looking to try to burn this terror down as fast as possible, or at least try to pick up some structures to make it worth it.
Yeah, and again, it's down to 15 seconds. A huge hook onto Urho. Emerald
Wow.
Wind will pick up that kill.
poly.
Divine Storm was used, and yes, the Poly Emerald Wind combo, I mean, a lot was used for that, but it's the kill that's going to allow them to get a lot of aggression because that is the tank on the enemy team. That is the one big line of defense, and if Illidan can run uncontested with a lot of lockdown, he can do so much damage.
Absolutely good point to make. McIntyre now, what they are hoping to be a win condition for them. A nice hook being thrown down. It's just a lot more damage. The polymorphs are good. Chunking away that HP off of Dunk Train gets the heal from Uther. Still, though, they were hoping to make use of this Garden Tower to really just win the game, and now it's been forced from a strict defensive position thanks to some really nice hooks for King Caffeine.
Terra still has a full minute left. They're using those hooks to blow it up the best they can. The sun comes out, and man, it is getting low. 20 seconds remaining on Murden's death timer, and that's 20 seconds of just opportunity that they're just trying to utilize and keep this aggression moving forward.
That's right. King Caffeine and Biceps both lined up for a nice position on a hook. Thrown out, and they, of course, they do have vision of this. McIntyre, once again, is inside this, so they do have the dimensional shift to get out. However, let's see, what did he grab at level 13? Okay, he does have prescience. That means he's quite a bit more safe to move forward.
All right, so Muradin is once again alive. This is signaling Vala to just back on out. Needs to be wary of Trummel, as Trummel could set up a big combo. And in the jungle, they're immediately getting aggressive. Oracle revealing iDream, forcing him back. Teams really need to be careful. Brightwing in the backline. They're just trying to capitalize on that soak, but is this too much of a risk?
The Maw, we're going to see the placement of it. It's going to really signify the start of the fight, and there's 2 heroes down. The Divine Storm being thrown down. McIntyre is just going to be able to get out just in time.
Oh my gosh! The hook comes out onto that Tassadar from so far away, and Trummel got blown up so very quickly. Odin will be the next to fall, and it looks like Cloud9 is going to push on forward. The body blocks have been real. The Ancestral might be enough. The hooks from afar,
quite,
not
no.
even needed.
Wow, and that was a convincing, even though the Maw was placed very well, they were able to separate so many members. iDream with Illidan was able to just completely lock the Odin down and just force it out of the fight, and they were really relying on so much of that to make for the follow-up of the Maw that they had, and it wasn't there. There was just so much of a scramble from the enemy team, that being complexity, of course, and bot or not, they still made it work.
Utherbot has returned, my friends.
Utherbot
Utherbot strikes again. Right. He has a legacy, and it's showing that Biceps is not needed.
Wow.
No,
wow.
I kid. No, but seriously, just really well played, Maelstrom. They stuck it out. They played defensive. Complexity took, they had a good game. But Maelstrom, they just took really good fights, and we talked about Stitches. We talked about the hooks being a necessity.
That was my next point.
He delivered today.
Yeah, they break the curse. Stitches is still viable. That's
still viable.
Wow, though.
What a game. I mean, 14 to 5 kills, and we can actually just pull up the stats just to look at them here. Now that we have the technology,
the technology
thanks to
is
Blizzard
available.
and the new UI, which is absolutely gorgeous, and we can just see that the damage, look at that structural damage from Tassadar, look at the damage. I mean, that's mainly the plant terror racking up.
That's true.
Huge numbers.
Very good point. Vala, of course, once again, hitting the damage charts, still super viable, even if you don't have that battle momentum and the safety so much from the vault. Can still get in there, can still throw those numbers down. Cool to see. What a fun series. It was good. Some really nice compositions were picked for both teams. Neither team necessarily saying that we're only good with this particular style. Stitch is finally getting a win. But I mean, we saw the leap combo.
Yes.
That was fun. It was just a lot of cool stuff back and forth from both teams. And of course, complexity is not out. They will be falling to the losers bracket, where they will go up against the loser between Tempo Storm and Tuark Iliad. And we're going to find out who that is, who's moving forward through the winner's bracket to go up against Cloud9 Maelstrom, and who is going to be falling to the loser's side to play against complexity. which, you ask a lot of people, they would have told you compLexity is the favorite probably for this playoff bracket. They have been doing really well as of late in the past week and a half or so.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show you how stacked this bracket is, that they've fallen round 1 into the loser side.
It's actually terrifying as to how stacked this tournament is. I mean, I don't know that we've ever had a point in time. Actually, no. In the Heroes community, we haven't really had a point where the event is this close. The level of games are this high. And yes, that series might have went 3-1, but every single game could have gone either way at any moment.
It's true. I mean, if you just look at how the end of that game transpired with the Garden Terror, just like everything was stacked against Cloud9, and they just like landed like 3 or 4 really nice hooks onto the Plant Terror, and they were able to turn it around, get the damage, and the fact that they're able to hook and blow up Arrow, a Muradin player, it just goes to show you that the power of the lockdowns that they actually had coordinated was good enough, and they can take out a tank, they can take out anyone, right? So.
Believed.
Done.
Well, guys,
they believed.
We are going to set up our second series of tonight. That is going to be Maelstrom versus 2ARC Iliad. It will be going very, very quickly. There's no long break. The teams are on deck. So, we're getting that ready.
Yep.
Kubi,
We'll get that sorted out.
I owe you flips.
You do owe me flips?
We'll get that sorted as soon as we can.
Okay, so I think we're going to try to get that lobby set up and just make sure everyone's here, ready to go. Well, we'll go for a quick break, and we'll be back with game number 1 between Tempo Storm and 2ARC Iliad.